Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Our top focus is on the situation in West Asia. After Israel's attack on Iran, Iran has promised fierce retaliation. What exactly will that look like? How will Iran hit back? What do the developments mean for West Asia? Are things headed towards an all-out war? We decode all of this and more and get you the bigger picture.
We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program.
مهار بشه دارن سعی
By attacking Iran's nuclear sites, ballistic missile factories and killing military commanders and nuclear scientists, Israel's actions now threaten to drag West Asia into an all-out war. Are things headed in that direction? Iran has already promised fierce response. But how exactly will it hit back? What are its military options? And how devastating could that counterattack be? We break it all down for you. Earlier today, Iran launched more than 100 drones towards Israel as a counter to its onslaught of the drone and missile targets. In fact, the air forces of Israel and Jordan claim to have intercepted the Iranian drones. The IDF claimed to have control over the situation. But was Iran's counter-drone attack just a test run by Tehran? Was Iran testing Israel's air defenses before a more coordinated strike? Because let's not forget, Tehran already fired over 180 ballistic missiles and drones at Israeli targets in October last year. Those strikes reportedly managed to damage Israeli air bases and critical military infrastructure. A repeat or a worse strike could now be on the table, and statements by Iran's top leaders clearly giving that indication. The supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, in fact, called Israel's action a declaration of war and vowed a bitter and painful retaliation. President Masoud Pezeshkian echoed that warning, saying Iran will make Israel, quote-unquote, regret its foolish actions. And following the killing of senior commanders, including the IRGC chief, Iran has announced replacements for the Revolutionary Guard and Armed Forces leadership. Khamenei named Mohammad Pakpour to replace Hossein Salami as the commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and Abdul Rahim Mousavi to replace Mohammad Bagheri as the chief of the Armed Forces General Staff. The reshuffling signaling that Tehran remains committed to maintaining control amid the chaos. So what can Iran do next? Can the country once again breach Israel's Iron Dome or have an even more impactful response than the one it carried out last year? Because Iran has the arsenal to do that. The Sejil is one of its primary medium-range ballistic missiles, with a reach of up to 2,500 kilometers, enough to hit anywhere in Israel. And then there is the Khorramshahr missile. With a similar range of 2,000 kilometers, Iran's Ahmad missile is also in this range category. The Shahab 3 and the Ghazra missiles are also part of Iran's core arsenal, and both are capable of carrying conventional or non-conventional warheads over a distance of roughly 2,000 kilometers. But missiles are not Iran's only weapons. It also has advanced drones capable of carrying out devastating strikes. The Shahed 149 Gaza can fly up to 4,000 kilometers with a payload of 500 kilograms. It's designed to carry precision-guided bombs and missiles and conduct surveillance missions deep into enemy territory. Another drone, the Shahed 136, often referred to as a suicide drone, has a range of 2,500 kilometers and can carry up to 50 kilograms of explosives. It uses GPS guidance and swarming tactics to overwhelm radar systems. These tools can give Iran a range of options. In fact, from symbolic retaliation to a full-scale military counteroffensive, Tehran can launch a one-time strike on Israeli military assets, or it could opt for a prolonged shadow war involving drones, missiles, attacks through its proxies like Hezbollah, Houthis, militias in Iraq. One possibility is a direct strike on Israel's nuclear infrastructure. Over this week, Iran has on multiple occasions publicly said that it possesses intelligence on Israeli nuclear facilities, among other key documents related to its military infrastructure. Chief among them could be Israel's Dimona nuclear site in the Negev desert. The Negev nuclear facility has been operational since the 1960s. Also in its target could be the Sorek Nuclear Research Center and the Palmachim Air Base, both located near Tel Aviv. The Zakaria Air Base, thought to host part of Israel's second strike capability, could also become a primary target. The stakes could not be higher. What happens next could define the situation in West Asia for years, maybe even decades. Iran has the motive to retaliate. The only question now is not if, but when, where, and how hard. The United States is shifting ships and other military resources in West Asia in response to Israel's strikes on Iran and a possible retaliatory attack by Tehran. The U.S. Navy has directed the destroyer USS Thomas Hutner to begin sailing towards the eastern Mediterranean, and also has directed a second destroyer to begin moving forward so it can be available if requested by the White House. The U.S. President is also meeting with his National Security Council principals, including Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and General Dan Kane, Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, on Friday morning to discuss the situation. The world is watching the fallout of a warning ignored. 2 months ago, U.S. President Donald Trump issued Iran a 60-day ultimatum: make a nuclear deal or face the consequences. On day 61 of that deadline, Israel launched the devastating attack where dozens of Iranian military sites, nuclear facilities, top commanders were also targeted in a strike that has, in a way, shaken all of West Asia. In an interview with ABC News, US President Donald Trump has made it clear Iran was warned. Trump's Truth Social post was blunt. I'm quoting, "Today is day 61. I told them what to do, but they just could not get there. Now they have, perhaps, a second chance." quote unquote. But while Trump praises the Israeli attack in a way, the White House is clear. America had no role in the Israeli operation. Iran sees coordinated US-Israel pressure and has already vowed a brutal response. But Trump is not backing down. In another post, the US president warned, quoting again, Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left. Now Oman, which is mediating the Iran-US nuclear talks, remember, has described Israel's attack as reckless, urging the international community to halt the dangerous course of action, quote unquote. And as far as Iran is concerned, Tehran has accused Washington of providing support to Israel for the operation, but the US Secretary of State reiterating that America had not been involved and that Israel had acted unilaterally in self-defense. Remember, US officials have repeatedly stated that any new nuclear deal to replace the 2015 accord from which Trump withdrew must include a commitment to scrap uranium enrichment. Meanwhile, Iran insisting it wants nuclear energy only for civilian purposes. And now with the escalation, the question on everyone's mind is what happens to the talks scheduled for Sunday? They are still scheduled, but is diplomacy already dead? This was supposed to be the week a deal was reached, a deal Trump demanded. Instead, the ultimatum date has expired and tensions have hit an all-time high. Israel says the attacks were necessary. But was the strike deterrence or provocation? Was it Israel's defense or Trump's deadline that finally detonated? One thing is clear. As of now, West Asia is on the boil again. And there seems to be every indication that things might get worse before they get better. All right, so those talks are slated for Sunday. Let's just get in further inputs at this point from our correspondent, Susan Tehrani, who's been keeping a close eye on those developments. Susan, the ultimatum date has expired, like we said, and the tensions have hit an all-time high. In Trump's words, Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left. Interesting choice of words there. The question immediately is, what happens to those talks?
It is. Iranian officials are telling some news agencies, including Reuters, that the negotiations with the United States under President Trump are all but over. However, as we're hearing from President Trump himself, he still hopes that those negotiations will not only take place, but also the Iranians will pick up the phone and he's willing to talk to them to reach some sort of deal regarding Iran's nuclear program. It's hard to imagine that the Iranians will show up in Oman. The Iranian foreign minister was slated to be there, of course, on Sunday. But we'll have to wait and see, especially in the next 24 hours, whether or not there'll be some kind of rapprochement between the two sides in these negotiations.
Right, and we also have the US Secretary of State reiterating that America had not been involved and that Israel had acted unilaterally in self-defense. What does one make of that, and what that really tells us about America's position?
Well, two things can be true at the same time. The United States was not directly involved in these Israeli attacks. And according to Israeli officials, perhaps the U.S. did know the timing and a lot of the details, but not specific details just for security reasons. The United States could be aware, but it could also not be involved. Now, the Iranians don't see it that way. Iran has come out and said that there is no way that the United States is not responsible for what Israel did against Iran. Again, it's important to note that Israel wouldn't go at this all alone by itself, but the fact that militarily and kinetically the United States wasn't involved, well, that seems to be true, at least for now. However, President Trump did reiterate that should Iran retaliate, then the United States will back Israel forcefully. He also told one of the journalists at Fox News last night, shortly after Israel's attack against Iran, that the United States has already supplied Israel's Iron Dome, resupplied it. So that was noteworthy as well for Israel's self-defense. And then, of course, we're seeing that the United States is now shifting ships in the region closer to Israel in anticipation of some sort of retaliation from the Islamic Republic.
All right, we're leaving it there for the moment, Susan. Thanks very much for those updates. And with that, Israel's war with Iran has entered a new audacious phase, one scripted in the shadows by Mossad and unleashed in the skies by the Israeli Air Force. As dawn broke, the world watched in shock as Israeli jets rode over Iran, pounding nuclear and missile sites in a coordinated assault that left Tehran, Natanz, military compounds ablaze. But the real story began long before the first bomb fell. Take a look.
Air raid sirens, mushrooming fireballs, F-16s staring through the skies. Israel says that 200 fighter jets took part in the mission. Israel's massive Operation Rising Lion has hit Iran hard. Iran's top commanders are dead. Nuclear sites ablaze.
Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons.
Tehran vows bloody payback as the region stands on a knife's edge. The devastation is unmistakable. Black smoke billows from the Natanz uranium enrichment facility, Iran's nuclear crown jewel. Flames consume buildings and emergency crews scramble through rubble. In Tehran, missile impacts shattered windows for kilometers, igniting fires and plunging neighborhoods into chaos.
I had just pulled out of the parking lot and was driving towards the middle of the road when I suddenly heard a massive explosion. Debris fell on my vehicle, trapping me inside. Right now, my head is buzzing and I have no idea what exactly happened.
But the real shock lay in the Mossad's clandestine hand. In the weeks leading up to the raid, Mossad operatives created a covert drone launch base near Tehran. The Mossad placed precision weapon systems into Iran. These weapons were kept in a safe house right under the nose of the Iranian military. That's not all. Israeli commandos also quietly sneaked into Iran. All this was preparation for Thursday's fierce attack. As Israel's jet struck, these drones simultaneously activated, shredding surface-to-surface missile launchers and air defense systems from within. As a result, Iran's anti-aircraft defenses were blindsided, giving Israeli jets total air supremacy. Tehran's skyline painted in ash and smoke. Among the dead are Iran Revolutionary Guards Chief Hossein Salami, Mohammad Bagheri, Iran's Armed Forces Chief of Staff, General Amir Ali Hajizadeh, the head of missile program, plus leading nuclear scientists. Iran labeled the strikes a declaration of war. Supreme Leader Khamenei warned of a bitter fate for the Zionist regime.
The attack last night has proven to the entire world the truth of what the Islamic Republic of Iran has been declaring for many years, that aggression and criminality are intrinsic to the Zionist regime's nature. Of course, the Iranian nation and its officials will not remain silent in the face of this crime. The Islamic Republic of Iran's legitimate and powerful response will make the enemy regret its foolish actions.
Global airspace was scrambled, flights grounded, crude oil surged, and stocks crumbled. The world is staring at a dangerously escalating situation in West Asia.
And there is a sense of apprehension in Tel Aviv on what happens next. Take a look at this report from on the ground.
Just hours ago, Iran launched more than 100 drones towards Israel. People here were bracing to see what was going to happen. Israel's military has said that it intercepted a lot of them outside of Israel's borders. It's still unclear, though, right now, if more are going to come, if Iran is also going to send ballistic missiles as well. But as you can see, cars are driving here, people are on the streets, there were people in the sea. And so people here in Tel Aviv, there's a mix of caution and skepticism and concern, of course, of what's going to happen. But people are also continuing to go about their lives right now as they wait and see what's going to come next.
Does the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu turn to war every time his grip on power slips? New polls released by major Israeli publication revealing that Netanyahu's coalition is hanging by a thread. According to Israel's Channel 13 survey, Netanyahu's coalition would barely manage 50 seats if elections were held today, far from the 61-seat majority needed in the 120-member parliament. His own Likud party, meanwhile, is trailing, projected to win only 24 seats. In contrast, former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett's emerging faction appears to be gaining ground with 27 seats. And that's not even all. A poll by Israel's national broadcaster showing an even grimmer picture for Netanyahu's coalition. Bennett's new party is shown securing 23 seats, while Likud could shrink to just 20. These numbers reflecting a growing dissatisfaction. According to the Channel 13 poll, 58% of Israelis now say they want fresh elections, and just 30% want Netanyahu to finish his term. In fact, just yesterday, Netanyahu's coalition narrowly survived against an opposition-backed bid to dissolve the parliament. And the vote margin was very close, 61 against the bill, 53 in favor of it. That bill could have triggered snap elections. Elections that, as Israeli polls project, Netanyahu would likely lose. And this is not the first time military action has coincided with political trouble in a way for Netanyahu. Remember in January when his popularity hit another low, Israel launched Operation Iron Wall, a full-scale military operation in the West Bank. The timing then as well raised eyebrows. And now, with public support waning and rivals rising, Netanyahu appears to be falling back on a similar playbook: escalation, conflict, and war, with fresh attacks on Iran. Is this just mere coincidence or part of a calculated strategy, or simply a case of Netanyahu trying to shield himself amid mounting legal troubles? In fact, the entire world is closely watching what things are looking like. Here's how the reactions have been as Iran vowed revenge. Its proxies in the region all threatened regional retaliation. The UN Secretary General, in fact, has urged maximum restraint, condemning escalation and warning that strikes on nuclear sites could have grave consequences. The UN's nuclear watchdog, IAEA, also echoed that fear, saying that nuclear sites must never be targeted and that such actions threaten millions. The NATO chief called on Israel's allies, including the US, to focus on de-escalation. This even as the White House insisted that it had no role in the Israeli operation. Across West Asia, countries from Iraq to Oman, Saudi Arabia, Qatar have all condemned Israel's attack, calling it a violation of international law and a threat to regional stability. Turkey has also called the strike a reckless provocation. China said it's deeply concerned and urged calm. Russia called it a sharp escalation and a dangerous turn. Even Afghanistan's Taliban said that Israeli attacks violated international law and fueled regional insecurity. In Europe, EU leaders called for diplomacy, while some like France and Germany backed Israel's fight to defend itself, warning against further escalation. Countries in the Asia-Pacific region also urged an immediate return to diplomatic talks, saying that the strikes have put the entire region at risk. In Africa, there is near unanimity. They say that Israel's strike could destabilize a region already on the brink, and all eyes now turn to Sunday's scheduled nuclear talks. Will diplomacy survive the fallout, or is this the beginning of something much bigger? And the Israeli strikes on Iran's military and nuclear installations opening a dangerous new chapter in the rivalry between the two West Asian powers. Today's strikes are much more dramatic than the two rounds of tit-for-tat attacks of 2024. Our special report now taking a look at how the two militaries compare in terms of soldiers and weapons.
As Israel weighs its options, Iran is warning it will respond in kind to any provocation. Waiting on the sidelines, the world doesn't have the appetite for another war. From Russia to the Europeans and the Gulf nations, all are urging Israel to exercise restraint. So amid all the concerns over an all-out war between Iran and Israel, how do the two militaries compare? Iran has one of the strongest militaries in West Asia. It has 610,000 active soldiers, which far outnumber Israel's 170,000 troops. Iran also has 350,000 reserve personnel in its ranks, while Israel has 465,000 reserve personnel. Not to mention 2/3 of the Israeli troops are already doing duty on the Gaza Strip. What Israel lacks in numbers, it more than makes up in its vast technological edge over Iran. Iran has about 186 fighter jets, while Israel has more than 250 fighter jets. But the numbers don't tell the full story. Iran's Air Force is the weakest wing of its military. Nearly 2/3 of Iranian jets were bought before 1979. Israel, on the other hand, has the latest air fighting machines. Israel has American F-16s and F-35 stealth combat jets. Israeli jets have regularly showed their firepower in operations against militants in Lebanon, Syria and Gaza. Iran has an upper hand with about 1,700 tanks compared to Israel's 1,300 tanks. Again, the numbers don't reveal the real picture. Israel has the state-of-the-art fleet of Merkava tanks, while the bulk of Iran's tanks are Soviet-era models bought in the 1990s. Again, in terms of armored vehicles, Iran has over 65,000 compared to Israel's 43,000. Israel's military vehicles are much faster and sleeker compared to Iran's. Though at a technological disadvantage, Iran's military could have a significant stockpile of the ballistic and cruise missiles and cheap unmanned aerial vehicles or drones. Again, Israel has a much more formidable arsenal when it comes to air defense systems. Iranian air defenses are much less developed than the multi-layer systems of Israel, and this is further bolstered by its ally, America. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And things are tense in Iran as well. Youssef Jalali, a journalist in Tehran, giving us a sense of what the situation is looking like and how the Israeli attacks were carried out amid the apprehension of what comes next.
Regarding those negotiations, of course, the sixth round was planned and was scheduled for this coming Sunday. But now we're hearing unconfirmed reports from different sources affiliated with the Islamic Republic, saying and suggesting that those talks are now off the table given the situation and the circumstances happening right now. And Iran says that it will not, at least for now, pursue the path of diplomacy with the United States. It has in the past also warned the United States and Israel that any attack against the country's military or nuclear facilities will be regarded as an act of war, and it will blame it both on Israel and the United States. So that's why we see that we've been hearing warnings by different Iranian officials saying that the American bases in the region, including those located inside Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and even the United Arab Emirates, those are within Iran's reach of the Iranian missiles, and those are within the targets of any potential Iranian counterstrike against Israel. So this is despite the fact that the United States has tried to stay out of it, saying that it was not aware of what Israel did, but Iran regards the Americans to be part of this.
And let's now focus on the other key aspect of it all. Frequent flyers are left scrambling as airlines are forced to divert, delay, or cancel flights in response to sudden airspace closures over Israel, Iran and Iraq. Airspace in the region is a major aviation corridor for flights connecting Asia and Europe. Several Air India flights from India to Europe were forced to return to their departure airports, leaving flyers worried about getting to their destination safely. Other major carriers also reported disruption, with several destinations like Iran, Israel, Damascus, Beirut being unserviceable. For flyers, this meant commotion at the airport, missed connecting flights perhaps, and long hours at the airport without clear information. Reports suggesting Istanbul is emerging as an alternative, but with dozens of flights already in the air at any given time, the Turkish airport authorities are handling the busiest aviation highway at the moment. Saudi Arabia also emerging as an alternative for flights being diverted from the region, and aviation experts saying travelers should brace for more volatility as the airspace remains restricted, and airlines are expected to delay or cancel flights as the situation evolves. The alternative routes are increasing fares, adding hours to flights and causing congestion. But airlines say they cannot take any chances. India's Ministry of External Affairs in a statement expressed concern on the developments between Israel and Iran and offered to provide full support to de-escalate the situation. The ministry said it was closely monitoring the evolving situation, including reports linked to attacks on nuclear sites, saying Israel and Iran should use existing channels of dialogue and diplomacy to try to calm things down and solve the underlying problems. The statement said India's missions in Israel and Iran are in touch with the Indian community there and cautioned Indians living in the region to be careful, stay safe, and follow local security advisories. And following Israel's Operation Rising Lion against Iran, India has urged Israel and Iran to avoid escalatory steps and engage in dialogue and diplomacy. Indian Ministry of External Affairs saying, like we just said, it is closely monitoring the situation, including reports related to attacks on nuclear sites. The ministry further stating that dialogue and diplomacy must be utilized to work towards a de-escalation and resolve the underlying issues. The government has also issued an advisory for Indian nationals and persons of Indian origin in Iran, asking them to remain vigilant and follow the embassy's social media accounts for updates.
The impact on us has been immediate. You can already see that oil prices have gone up by about 5%. That has an immediate impact on our balance of payments position. We are concerned that if this escalates over the next few days, and should Iran take the extreme step of blocking the Strait of Hormuz, that will have a major impact on trade, on energy flows. Remember, 60% of India's energy flows, oil and gas, come from the Gulf. And the Strait of Hormuz is a really narrow passage. You know, the whole entire width is maybe around 40 kilometers. But when you look at the channel, the shipping channel through which the large container vessels and the large oil tankers can pass, that's barely 3 kilometers. So, you know, it is fairly easy for Iran, should it wish to block the channel. It's attempted to do that once before. That would have a hugely problematic impact for us. We already seen how the Red Sea blockades by the Houthis have disrupted shipping through the Suez Canal. So crystal ball gazing in a live war situation is, I think, difficult. I think Israel, the Prime Minister Netanyahu, has indicated quite clearly that what his war aims are. He wants to try and reduce, if not make inoperable, Iran's nuclear facilities. Whether they can actually do that without American help is a question mark.
Let's now shift our focus to the latest on the Ahmedabad plane tragedy. The second black box has now been found. The device was recovered by the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau team from the rooftop of the resident doctors' hostel building where the flight crashed on Thursday. On Thursday night, the first black box was found in the rear of the aircraft. The Civil Aviation Minister, meanwhile, took to X and wrote, "This marks an important step forward in the investigation. This will significantly aid the inquiry into the incident." And the Director General of Civil Aviation, DGCA, has issued directives to Air India mandating immediate additional maintenance actions on its Boeing 7878 and 7879 aircraft equipped with Gen X engines. The move is aimed at enhancing operational safety and ensuring strict compliance with regulatory standards. Effective from midnight on June 15, Air India is required to conduct a one-time pre-departure check on flights leaving India. And this includes inspection of fuel parameter monitoring systems, cabin air compressors, electronic engine control systems, operational tests of the engine fuel-driven actuator and oil systems, serviceability checks of the hydraulic system, and a review of takeoff parameters. A team of NIA today visited the Ahmedabad plane crash site. The team was accompanied by other central agencies officials. Earlier, the National Disaster Response Force ramped up its emergency response, increasing the number of deployed teams at the crash site to 7. Prime Minister Modi visited the crash site in Ahmedabad today. And he also visited the hospital to meet the lone survivor of the crash. The London-bound jet crashed in Ahmedabad on Thursday. One passenger miraculously survived. The 40-year-old is the sole survivor at this point. The government has opened a formal investigation into the cause of the crash. The Air India CEO also was at the plane crash site today. Prime Minister Modi also held a review meeting with the officials at the airport. In fact, let's just tell you a bit more about the investigation. The Indian government has formed a high-level committee to probe the crash. The black box being recovered, the device will help investigate the crash, like we said. And our correspondent Disha Shah visited the crash site and sent us this ground report from Ahmedabad. Take a look.
A day after the horrific Ahmedabad plane tragedy, many questions still remain unanswered. What was the reason behind the massive explosion that claimed so many lives? And were there any warning signs?
Here we are talking about an Air India flight which took off from the Ahmedabad airport, which was on the way to London. It crashed right here at the very specific same spot which we are showing you. This is the doctor's hostel. There are about 5 buildings as part of this entire medical college is concerned, and every building has been affected. Every building here has faced extensive damage, and specifically the resident doctors who were present inside at the time of the crash also faced either casualties.
Eyewitnesses narrate their horror, with flames piercing through windowsills of the BJ Medical College campus. They say they have not witnessed anything like it.
Whatever happened was very devastating. It cannot be described in any words. I haven't seen anything like this in my life. There is a hostel for juniors doctor here. Many of them were there when the crash took place. Civilians engaged in rescue operations initially. Fire department and other authorities came later and recovered several dead bodies. The distance to civil hospital is about 1.5 kilometers from here.
These are the visuals of the wreckage site, showing bodies being pulled out and the injured, many with burns, wheeled into the city civil hospital close by. Emergency services are answering distressed calls, with forensic experts gathering post-mortem report.
The count that has been given by the Ahmedabad police is 265 bodies they have recovered from the crash site, which is just about few meters away. If I can ask my video journalist to show you, this is the civil hospital. This is one of the wings of the civil hospital, and right behind this is the BJ Medical College hostel where that incident took place. So it roughly takes about 10 minutes for the people to come here, because this is not a small campus. It's a 3 to 4 kilometer widespread campus, and it is known as Asia's biggest civil hospital.
Hundreds of family members are now gathered at the City Civil Hospital in Ahmedabad. Many are giving their DNA samples. Some are still clinging to hope. The others mourning their unimaginable loss.
We can see hundreds of relatives who have come from across the country. They are the relatives of the victims who are here to give the DNA samples, because once the DNA samples are given, the authorities here, the medical professionals here will be able to identify that this passenger has been identified, and then the body will be handed over. This is Disha Shah reporting here for WION from Ahmedabad in Gujarat with Vijay Siddesh.
Our next story is about a miraculous escape. The man who cheated death and lives on to tell the tale. After surviving the Air India plane crash, the visuals on your screen now are jarring to say the least. Hard to believe that anyone would survive such a crash, one would think. But someone did. The passenger on seat 11A, the miracle survivor.
नज़रों के सब सामने हुआ था। मेरे खुद को भी बिलीव नहीं होता कि मैं कैसे उसमें से जिंदा बाहर निकला, क्योंकि थोड़ा टाइम लिए कि तो मेरे को लगा था कि मैं भी मरने वाला हूँ, लेकिन जब मेरी आँख खुल गई, मैं देखा ना, तो मुझे लगा मैं जिंदा हूँ। तो मैंने ट्राई किया, जब मेरी सीट थे वो मेरी बेल्ट निकाला, मैंने वो ट्राई किया जहाँ से निकल सकता वहाँ से, तो मैं निकल गया वहाँ से। मेरे सामने नज़रों के सामने एयर होस्टल और दूसरे आंटी अंकल सभी उसमें मैच हो गए थे सभी।
And he was filmed after the crash, limping on the street in a blood-stained shirt with bruises on his face. The man narrated how he was able to cheat death.
मैं जो साइड पे था ना, वो साइड हॉस्टल पे नहीं लैंड हुई थी। हॉस्टल के जो ग्राउंड फ्लोर है ना, जैसे नीचे, वहाँ लैंड हुई थी। तो मुझे दूसरे के बारे में मेरे को पता नहीं, लेकिन मैं जहाँ लैंड हुआ था ना, वो नीचे की साइड थी। तो जब वहाँ थोड़ा पेस भी था प्लेन के जब बाहर, तो जब जैसे मेरा डोर टूटा ना सब, तो मैंने देखा ना जब सामने कि थोड़ा इधर पेस है, तो मैं ट्राई कर सकता हूँ निकलने के लिए। तो मैंने ट्राई किया निकलने के लिए, तो फिर मैं निकल गया उधर, क्योंकि अपोजिट साइड पे था ना, वो बिल्डिंग का वो था ना दीवार, तो उधर से कोई शायद नहीं निकल सका होगा, क्योंकि उधर पूरा उधर ही क्रैश हुआ था। मैं जो जहाँ था वहाँ ही थोड़ा पेस था, फिर भी मेरे पता नहीं मैं कैसे बचा हूँ, क्योंकि मेरे नज़र के सामने ही सब दो एयर होस्टल वो अंकल आंटी सब उधर ही सब।
You can call it luck, destiny, miracle, whatever it was, seat 11A saved his life. In fact, Prime Minister Modi, like we said, met him earlier today. Ramesh lives on, but his family still mourns as his brother was also on board that plane. His seat was 11J reportedly, and for him, unfortunately, there was no miracle. Among the dead, an entire family of 5. Dr. Koni Vyas, a renowned physician, husband Dr. Pradeep Joshi, their 3 children. What was meant to be a family trip to London became their final journey together. Meanwhile, Mahadev Pawar and his wife were on their way to visit their elder son in London. Their younger son bid his parents a final goodbye at the airport. The captain, Sumit Sabharwal, and co-pilot, along with crew members, all of them lost their lives. And we're switching gears for now. Ukraine is reeling under relentless Russian bombardment. It is running out of ammunition, and in its desperate hour, its allies are quietly stepping back. Germany, in a stunning blow, refuses to send Taurus missiles, and now the NATO makes a rare admission that Russia's war machine is overpowering the West. Take a look.
The battlefield is blazing and Ukraine is bleeding. Russian cruise missiles are ripping through Kharkiv, Odessa and Kiev. And glide bombs have flattened frontline positions. Ukraine finds itself increasingly cornered. The anticipated lifeline from Berlin has now turned into a bitter disappointment. Germany, despite Ukraine's desperate pleas, has officially rolled out sending the long-range Taurus cruise missiles, a potential game-changer that could have struck deep into Russian logistics. Ukraine already has a number of missiles. It has Storm Shadow, an Anglo-French cruise missile. Then there are the American ATACMS with a range of up to 300 kilometers. Ukraine also has its indigenous Neptune missile, but with Taurus, Ukraine would have extended its strike range to 500 kilometers and increase the strike range of Ukrainian military. Instead, Berlin is offering IRST air defense systems, which are effective, but nowhere near the strategic capability that the Taurus missiles could provide. This decision comes on the heels of the United States slowing its own weapons pipeline. First, Washington diverted 20,000 missiles promised for Ukraine to West Asia. Then came another shocker: the Trump administration would be drastically cutting down the weapons aid to Ukraine. The West's backbone, it appears, is starting to crack. And now comes the most brutal truth straight from the NATO chief. Mark Rutte says that Russia produces as much ammunition in 3 months as NATO does in a year, posing serious risks for the military alliance.
Putin's war machine is speeding up, not slowing down. Russia is reconstituting its forces with Chinese technology and producing more weapons faster than we thought.
The NATO alliance, once confident of overpowering Putin's war machine, is now acknowledging its limitations. On the ground, Ukraine continues to suffer wave after wave of drone swarms, artillery strikes and missile barrages. In the air and on the front lines, Russia is pressing harder than ever, exploiting every detail and every diplomatic hesitation by the West. Despite the odds, Ukrainian military continue to put up a tough fight, stopping the Russian advance and continuing to destroy Russian weapons. Kiev's frustration is mounting, and so is the pressure on European capitals. With the war entering a critical phase, America's go-slow approach and Germany's refusal to part with Taurus missiles isn't just symbolic. It may shape the outcome of battles yet to come. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Shifting focus for now, President Trump imposed historically high tariffs and trade restrictions on China for months. The Trump administration, in fact, boasted about having the upper hand with China, and U.S. tariffs soared to 145%. But Beijing turned the tables in a way by virtually cutting off exports of rare earths, magnets, an important commodity for industries from autos to defense. The United States and other countries swiftly reached their pain threshold as the delayed delivery of items containing rare elements started to impact sectors ranging from autos to defense. Elon Musk claimed that shortages were harming his robotics firm. Ford Motor, Suzuki Motor idled part of their production. Governments hurried to secure the few supplies outside of China. A worldwide crisis escalated from a bilateral US-China trade dispute, and now China has found the world's pain point on trade and will use it again at will to leverage discussions with trading partners. The US and China have agreed to a trade deal. Hours after the agreement, a prominent Chinese rare earth magnet maker has said that it had obtained export permits to countries including the US. The company's shares jumped 12%. However, China is likely to hold back businesses from stocking up on rare earths, particularly in the military sector. For all the US bluster, company executives and analysts said the latest episode demonstrated just how quickly China's advantage in the rare earths trade can be deployed to secure concessions from countries whenever tensions rise. Most analysts expect China will most likely use that leverage at will. Rare earths have long been under China's control. In the early 2000s, Beijing instituted export limitations. However, it wasn't until 2010 that the elements were used as a trade weapon, delaying supplies to Japan amid a maritime dispute. That was the beginning of Tokyo's attempts to distance itself from China in a way which took more time and money than anticipated. After losing a dispute at the World Trade Organization in 2015, China loosened its export limitations, but demand has only gone up since then. While processing may have accelerated and permits eased, any new mine is still some years away. To mark 12 years of the iconic K-pop band BTS, the annual festival called BTS Festa was organized. Take a look at all that happened. Indian actor Karishma Kapoor's former husband Sanjay Kapoor passed away following a heart attack. The 53-year-old was the chairman and non-executive director of Sona Comstar. His company issued a statement to confirm his death. It read, and I'm quoting, "It is with profound sorrow that we announce the untimely passing of Sanjay Kapoor, chairman and non-executive director of Sona Comstar, following a sudden heart attack in the UK on 12 June at the age of 53. As per reports, Kapoor died while playing polo in the UK. Several reports claiming that Kapoor accidentally swallowed a bee during the game, post which he suffered a heart attack. Sanjay Kapoor married Indian actor Karishma Kapoor in 2003 and became parents to daughter Samira in 2005 and Kian in 2011. In 2014, the couple filed for divorce, which was finalized in 2016. In fact, Kapoor then married entrepreneur and former model Priya Sachdev. On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
We're giving an AI-generated video where we can analyze your credit history, your credit score.
It's all about now content. A lot of it is now digital. A lot of TV content is still being watched.
I think it's been a fantastic journey. We have succeeded in some of our original goals, which was to bring credit accessibility to both companies and individuals.
Key milestones of traction under your leadership.
Getting actually a personal check from Mr. Ratan Tata. We got an opportunity to get listed.
One of the biggest things that has changed in Razorpay over the last 5-6 years I've been is to be a single product, single business company to a multi-product, multi-business company.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
From the bustling trading floors of